This is a demo of Java full stack course. So in this session, I will explain you like what all the concepts in this Java full stack course will gets covered. So initially it is core Java, which is very important in the Java full stack. So core Java means there are so many concepts will be there. The first one is introduction to Java. So first we need to know what is the Java. So how internally it will work, why we need to use the Java, which all projects we will be using. So this background if we cover, then you will have one introduction and overview of Java. Then afterwards, to write code, we need some tool. So we cannot write in the notepad and run the project. To write that code, we need some tool where we can execute our program, run the application. So for that purpose, we have so many tools in the market. So in that, mostly used tool is Eclipse. Apart from Eclipse, we have IntelliJ, Spring Tool Suite, all these things. But for IntelliJ, again, we have to pay some amount. So in market, we can use Eclipse freely. So Eclipse looks like this. So where you can create the project, whatever project you want. So let's say we have created Java 8, project 7, like practice Java student. So like this, we can create any project. Or if you have the existing project, let's say you joined into some company and they will give some project like let's say some Swiggy or Flipkart. So this kind of a project, you can import it to this Eclipse and you can do all the work here. This is one of the tool we will write the Java code. Next thing is Java operators, data types. So these all are basic core Java concepts. Let's say there is a fresher who doesn't know anything about Java. Now we need to learn what all things are there in Java initially. So once we know that concepts, then we can build big projects. But initially we need to know the basics. In that basics, initially few things comes like first of all, what is class in Java? What is object in Java? After that, we have so many things like operators, data types, how we can create some method, how we can write the logic. Let's say someone gives you two numbers and asks you to add the two numbers. Generally, we can write in the notepad, but in Java, how we can write, how we can create two numbers and how we can sum those two numbers, add, and how we can return that particular number, whatever we did sum. So these all things we will learn in this core Java concepts. And there are some control statements also. These control statements are very, very important when we write some logic. This is like if condition, else condition, and there are some loops also for loop, while loop, all these things. So these all things are very useful when we actually go into coding part. So these all things we will learn initially, then we can go to the other concepts. Next, there are few things which are specific to Java. So constructors, static, this final keyword. So all these things will be coming. Each and everything will have importance, small importance. And even if you go to the interviews, they will be asking, can you explain me about constructor? Can you explain me about static keyword? Can you explain me about final keyword? So these all things will be coming in interviews as well as some MCQs, multiple choice questions also they will ask, and they will give some code snippet. Code snippet means they will give some 4 5 lines of code and they will ask you what is the output, what will be the output of this code. So for all those things to solve, we can learn in these concepts. Next comes the basic and heart of Java, OOPS concepts. So OOPS means object oriented programming. In that there are four things: inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, and encapsulation. Apart from this, we have something called association, these things also. Those things also we can learn when we go to this OOPS concepts. But these are the main concepts. Any project in Java will work on this one. Either you will be using inheritance or polymorphism, or in one class you will be using both inheritance, polymorphism, as well as abstraction. So all these things you will be using in your real-time projects. Without these four concepts, you cannot create any project, you cannot create any code using these are the main concepts of Java. So in the course, we will learn how this inheritance works, both theoretically as well as by creating some classes. So practically, how it will work, both we will see. And in real time also, how we will implement this inheritance concept and polymorphism concept, all these things we will learn. Okay. So next, one of the another important concept is strings. So strings means generally we will have some strings like our name is one string. If it has some characters, it is a string. Your college name is a string. Bangalore, the name itself is a string. So strings are very, very important things in Java. So how you can create a string, what are the concepts which comes in the strings, and what will be the coding problems which comes in the strings. So all these things will be covered in this concept. So strings for coding purpose, it's very important because for interviews, both for freshers as well as for experienced people, most of the questions will be coming in the strings. Then there is some internal concepts of string is string constant pool, where you will be covering how the string storage will happen, how the modification of string, all these concepts will be covering in the string constant pool. Next, another thing is exception handling or errors. So any coding program or any tool if you take, so you will get definitely some errors because not 100% you will be writing perfect code in the first time. So you will be getting some errors or some exceptions where some like your code is not working as expected. So in those scenario also we need to handle that code so that your project won't break. Let's say some Flipkart sale is happening and your code, whatever you are expecting, it is not expecting like behaving as expected. So those scenario, your application should not crash. Somehow your application should work. So in all those scenarios, you can handle that exception and you can make your application not break and work functionally well. So all these things will cover in this exception handling, and there will be some errors. What kind of errors are there in Java? And if we get that error, what we have to do internally to solve that error or exception. So these all things will get covered in this core Java concepts. So next important things, mostly we will be using in all Java projects is collections. Collections is nothing but collecting the data. You can collect some names, you can collect some objects, employees, salaries, all these things. So once we learn these core Java concepts of how we can create the class, how we can create the data types, then collections is very easy. So it's like these are basic concepts. These are little advanced compared to these basic concepts. So in the collections, we have many things. Arrays is one collection, list, map, set. So all these things will be there. I will explain you about each and everything individually, how list work and what are the different types of list we have and how we can create a list. What are the coding problems will be coming on the list. So all these things will be covered so that you will be prepared for theory questions as well as for practical questions also you will be covered. Then afterwards, SQL concepts. So once you learn these Java concepts, it's very important to learn the SQL, which means in Java, you will be handling the data. You created one project where you will be taking the bank project. Let's say, for example, you will be taking the account numbers, all the account holder details, and what are the transactions happened. But these all things you should store somewhere. Otherwise, that data you cannot fetch. Let's say you go to a bank, you will create the account. Next time, if you go to the bank, you don't need to create the account because the account is already created. So where this account will be stored? The bank will have some database where all the data of yours will be stored in the database. Earlier, we used to have hotels where they used to write everything in a notebook. So how many employees are there and what is their salary and how many orders happen today and next day they will maintain every day each book. If someone took some loan, say let's say they didn't pay bill today, and they will keep on adding that some amount to the previous balance. So these all things they were maintaining in notebook. So it's very hard to maintain that. If you do some mistakes or let's say one page is missing, so you won't get the data. So for that, for those things, instead of maintaining it, manually, so you will have this particular database where you will be storing entire data in one particular database. And if you want to get the data, it's easy to get the data. If you go to the bank, just enter your account number and password or username password. You will get all the data of your account. Where that data is storing means that bank people will have some database there. All your data will be storing. uh, let's say you deleted the account. So your account will be deleted from the database. Even if you go and enter your account number, they will say this account does not exist because you deleted the data. You go to some Mintra or Zomato, you log in. So before login, if you are a new user, you have to register. If you have already registered, you don't need to register again. You can enter your username and password. It will directly go and show your previous orders and your location, everything it will automatically take. Why? Because that particular whatever the data is there, it will be stored in database and it will be automatically fetched. So how we can create the database and how we can create the tables to store the data. If you enter new data, how it will be inserted in the database. If you delete some data, how it will be deleted in the database. All these things will be covered in this SQL concepts. So SQL is one of the language which we use as a database developer. So when you learn Java, it's very important to learn SQL also so that you will be interacting with the database. So you need to learn some basics of the SQL so that you can easily code whatever you want in Java. Next thing is Spring Boot concepts. So Spring Boot is one of the framework which uses for Java, and now most of the companies are using this Spring Boot. So I will explain you how we can create a project. Like real-time projects, we will be working in the real time with some projects. So I will explain how we can create the project and how we can interact with front end to back end. If you go to ICICI net banking or any of the net banking, you just enter your username and password. So from backend, you don't know from where the data will be coming. So the data will be coming to your screen. That screen you will develop with front-end technologies. But backend, how it is working, we don't know. So that backend project we will be developing with Spring Boot. Let's say you enter wrong credentials. So it has to go to somewhere and validate, right? So those all validations we will be writing in this Spring Boot. So in the front end, we'll just display whatever coming from the database. So to connect this front end and the database in between, we need one project. So that project is Spring Boot project. So we'll have database somewhere our data will be storing. We have some front end application where you will be entering all your details and hitting the database. But this front end and this database has to be connected somewhere. So these two will be connected in between a Spring Boot project. This is where our Java code we will write. So front end will interact with Spring Boot Java code. Then this Java code will interact with the database and this database will give result back. Then whatever result we got in Spring Boot, we'll return it back to the front end. And another important tool is Postman. So this also most of the companies will use. So this Postman tool, why we use is if you don't have the front end project, let's say you don't have any UI, even though you don't have that front end part, you have this back end and database, you can test this particular project without this UI. So instead of this particular the UI, you can use your Postman tool. So directly hit the back end project. Like I mentioned, front end will be there, Spring Boot will be there, and database will be there. So from front end to Spring Boot, you will be connecting. Even if you don't have the front end, you can use this Postman tool and hit your project. So most of the testing will be done in the projects based on this Postman because front end one team will be working, back end one team will be working. Let's say front end team didn't complete their project or they didn't finish their task, but back end you completed your project, you want to test your project. Since this front end is not ready, you cannot proceed with your back end project testing. So for that purpose, you can use this Postman temporarily to test your project. So these things also we'll learn in this course. Next comes front end. Let's say you go to some Flipkart or Mintra, you log in. So you can see user details at one side, and you can see some mobile section, TV section, then some grocery section, all these things divided. And you can see some columns, tables, some data will be there. So all those things you need to implement somewhere. So we'll be using front end technologies and implement. Let's see one of the web page, small web page, Wikipedia of MS Dhoni, we will see. So if you go, this is one of the web page which you can see in like web page. So this is on the internet. If you see, they have some photo here. This photo someone inserted, and you have a drop down here. There are so many languages, and if you see, there is a heading. This is different, and this heading is different, and this is a normal text, and this is a link. If you click on this, it will go to next page. And if you see left side, there are many options. All are links. If you come here, it is like a table where you have some header and some symbols we have, and we have some other links. So these all things how we can develop. So there are some technologies. So we have HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So these all things we will use to implement this kind of a web pages. Even if you go to some company website, they will be putting so many options. Learn about company, like know about company, vacancies, careers with us, and about us. So like this, there will be so many options. So how they will develop is for each section they will create one particular web page. So if you click on that one, it will go to that web page and you can see all the details. So we can create all these things with this particular things.